In our Eye on Earth series, we can share a bit of good news in the battle against climate energy, such as wind and solar, are generating more power in the U.S. than coal. That's encouraging because burning coal produces planet-warming emissions that make sea levels rise and weather more extreme. CBS News senior environmental correspondent Ben Tracy visited a school district in Arkansas that's turning sun rays into paydays.
Let's review real quickly.
Jeannie Repke has been a teacher in Arkansas for 24 years.
Why are you a teacher?
Oh my gosh, the students. Absolutely, completely the students.
Can I assume you don't do this for the money?
If you're in it for the money, it's the wrong profession. You know, it's not the right choice.
Repke's school district in Batesville, Arkansas, prides itself on putting students first. But when it came to paying its teachers, Batesville was next to last in this part of the state. Salaries averaged about $45,000.
And we weren't keeping people because of that.
Michael Hester is Batesville's superintendent. He was losing teachers and having a hard time getting new ones to move to this rural Arkansas town of about 10,000 people.
People aren't in this business obviously for the money, but they should not have a vow to poverty to teach either.
Thank you.
Jeannie Repke has been working 5 nights a week at the local community center just to make ends meet. But then she started hearing a rumor.
Oh yeah, teachers love to talk.
About an unusual solution to Batesville's budget problems.
At first you're like, what's that about? Really, what's that about?
That would allow this school district to truly live up to its name.
Don't sleep on Arkansas. We'll surprise you every time.
The school took an unused field out back and filled it with hundreds of solar panels. It also put up a new solar canopy stretching across the entire front of the high school. In all, nearly 1,500 panels aimed at recharging Batesville's budget.
Batesville's the pioneers, and they really did pioneer solar in Arkansas.
Rick Vance works for the local energy company that helped the district save more than $600,000 in utility costs.
They did it at a time when no one else was doing it, and when now everybody's doing it.
Solar power costs a lot less than it used to, mainly because it's now cheaper to make the panels. In the past decade, the price of solar has dropped 89%. So to both save money and the planet, more than 7,000 schools across the country are now using solar power. That's up 81% in just 5 years. But as far as anyone can tell, Batesville is the only school district that's turned panels into paychecks.
Batesville has reduced the checks they write to utilities and increased the checks they write to teachers.
With the money it's saved and made by selling electricity back to the grid, Batesville has handed out bonuses 2 years in a row, boosting every teacher's salary by as much as $15,000. The district, once one of the worst, is now the best paying in the county.
Are you getting more resumes these days from teachers who want to come work here?
Not only are we getting more resumes, we're getting fewer resignations.
That's good.
Jeannie Repke has seen her pay go up by thousands of dollars, enough to dig out of debt and cut way back on her hours at the community center.
Thank you.
Did you ever in your life imagine you'd get a raise because of solar panels?
No, that would not have been one of the things that I thought. But what a great idea. The sun's going to be shining anyway, so why not cash in on that?
And she's grateful her school realizes that putting students first starts with their teachers.
It's good to know that they care about us. Feels really, really good.
Now, our teacher Jeannie says one of the best parts about not having to work all those hours at her second job is she has more time to help out her students who are learning from home because of COVID. And you know, schools across the country are using their solar panels in different ways. Here in Washington, D.C., this school put their solar installation above their parking lot. Anthony, you get a little solar shade here when you park your car.
I like everything about this story, Ben. Thank you very much. More pay for teachers, solar panels.
And we like teacher Jeannie.
Yeah, we do. I wish she was one of my teachers. Yeah.
Jump off the
Put
screen.
a solar panel in front of her, you'll pick up.
One of the projects, Jerome, that Richard is working on, or sorry, Robert is working on, is to turn schools into power plants, essentially. And I'm sure.
So
Okay. There you are.
So were you guys able to hear the audio for that video?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So
Yes, yes, yes. So I was kind of telling Jerome a little bit about what you're doing, with planning on, using these schools and things like that. My mom used to work for an engineer in Anchorage that built all these schools all over in the bush and everything else. So
yeah,
she worked for the structural engineer that was doing all the drawings, and there's a ton of them. There's tons of these empty buildings all over the bush. We might as well use them for power plants. I totally agree.
yeah, I think a key to a key to village survival is that the challenge I've seen in most of villages is the fact that they install these systems, but there's nobody to maintain them. So if something small
Correct.
happens, something small happens, then it's a big deal to be able to get somebody out there. And what we're what we're proposing with the Good Jobs Plan is that there would be somebody in the village whose job it was to maintain these systems along with the other infrastructure around town. Because it's not just the idea of, the whole idea of putting these on schools is to be able to focus them where they're most useful. I mean, like you said, they're empty roofs. We should be doing something with them. Just because the buildings are empty during the summertime doesn't mean their roofs have to be. And as you saw in that article, they're just focusing on the dollars that make sense. All the environmental attributes, everything else is secondary. And I think that's really important to consider when we're talking to an audience like what we have here in Alaska.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times these school buildings, they never think about how they can make money with them. It's never a for-profit. It's always just an expense.
Well, from my understanding, there's some restrictions from the school district. They're not allowed to make money or something like that. And so that's why this PPA option actually works, because it doesn't actually deal with the schools. They just benefit from the reduced
And it can
operating
save money. Exactly. Yeah. They can at least save money.
So I've got
and the solar panel guys can lease space from the schools, if it comes down to that.
Well, it makes that gets really complicated when you're dealing with the municipality. So the reason that we're promoting the idea of the PPA is that it's a really simple, straightforward solution that doesn't get mired down. There's a lot of third-party flip options and stuff like that, but they require collaborative working agreements, and that's not usually where the utilities or the schools are at. So we just recognize that there's a lot of opportunity. The prices have come down, and
they can at least save money with an investment like this.
Yeah, and the thing is that there's no out-of-pocket expense. There's nothing due until the energy is generated, and basically, if you're paying 16 cents now, you'd be paying 14 cents or something to that degree. It's not big, but as watts turn into kilowatts and megawatts, or over the course of the year, it can add up to substantial savings. And it's just a matter of finding the right people and the right plan to put it in the ground. So let me see if this makes sense. See here.
There are several ways to go solar. They all have their advantages and disadvantages. Because every situation is a little different and there is not a one-size-fits-all solution, you really should speak to an advisor who understands and can explain the benefits and shortfalls of each option. A power purchase agreement, or PPA, is where you continue to purchase power, but at a rate cheaper than the utility company and with less than the average annual rate increase. In other words, the PPA provider steps in and becomes your new power provider and collects electric bills from you, acting as your new utility company. The rates can vary, but are almost always cheaper than your traditional utility company's lowest tiered rate. And the escalator is also fixed at a rate typically half of your current power company's rate increases. Occasionally, a plan with no escalator is available, but it is then traded off for a higher per kilowatt rate. There is also typically little to no upfront costs, such as permitting, installation, activation, down payments, etc. The PPA, in a sense, simply becomes a cheaper rate plan, with a guaranteed rate and escalator for a fixed amount of time. The typical PPA term is 20 years. It's not a bad deal, considering you are locking in a rate for power, similar to if you were able to lock in a guaranteed price per gallon of gas for your car for a set amount of years where it could not change. One way the PPAs can get confusing is in how customers get billed for their power. Because solar production is independent of usage, your power bill is based off the power produced, not by how much you've used. It may seem counterintuitive at first, but when looked at over a 12-month span, you'll see that it averages out quite nicely and significantly less than what you would have paid to the other guys. Because you are paying for power and not the actual cost of the system, it technically is not a lease, although it sort of feels like one because you don't actually own your panels. The solar company maintains ownership. The benefit there is that they are also responsible for the maintenance and performance of the system. Some offer monitoring as well. Because you don't have ownership, you also won't get to take advantage of any potential tax credits. One area of concern is the liability and the ability to transfer in the event of selling your home. Make sure the PPA being offered does not place a lien on your house, and see if there will be credit requirements for the new owners to pick up the PPA. Otherwise, you may end up finding yourself having to buy out of it. Home sales with PPAs attached are fairly commonplace, and typically is as simple as changing the utility into a new name. Furthermore, it should be seen as a benefit to the buyer, seeing as they're getting a house with reduced rates for electricity. In short, if you want a simple way to go solar and not have any upfront, out-of-pocket expenses, and you're not likely to qualify for the tax credits, then the PPA might be for you. The best way to know if the PPA plan would save you the most money and what your options are is to contact an Alpha Power Group representative today for a free, no-obligation energy assessment.
That was a goodie.
So CJ, what they're trying to do is turn the schools that are out in the bush into having solar panels on them.
Yeah, I saw
so
that.
they can at least save money.
Which makes sense. I'm pretty sure that since they're state funded, they're going to have to be inspected by a specialist before anything like that can even happen.
Oh yeah.
And most undoubtedly somebody from the Corps of Engineers. But I don't think that'd be problematic.
No. We just need to get them to sign on.
That's
and that's what a PPA. Yeah, that's what the PPA is. It's like when they brought in the natural gas back in the 80s. You know, everybody signed on, and you would pay a monthly, you know, the borough would pay half of it, or Instar paid half, and then the whoever wanted to connect to it, you know, they made it very affordable to where it was like 10, 20 bucks a month for like 10 years or something like that. But it stays with the house. So if you sell your house, the new buyer, it's part of your
So is this going on houses or on schools?
Schools.
Okay, and
but a lot of these school buildings are getting sold.
Yeah, but they're still state funded though, so that would be another thing.
Well, that's the value that we're offering with the PPA. So I just chatted with Nat. He's having a little technical difficulties, but he's trying to work through them. So good evening. My name is Robert Shields. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit based in Fairbanks, Alaska called the Alliance for Reason and Knowledge. This presentation tonight is part of our North Star Economic Development District effort, where we're trying to match private equity funding with public projects and being able to advance the regenerative economy by focusing on workforce development opportunities. This opportunity with Solar on Earth actually came about because of a discussion we're having with another company to actually bring solar manufacturing to Alaska. And the scope of the meeting tonight was to simply hear from one of the developers and to learn about how these PPAs work and how they've been working in other states. The issue with the PPA is that it doesn't cost any money up front, and it's a very simple power purchase agreement between the developer and the borough, which owns most of the school buildings. The hope was in organizing a presentation like this that Alaska may be a large state, but that we would be able to capitalize on the fact that we're a small community, and that if we put together a program for all the schools, that we could work with local installers, work with the local unions to get workforce development moved, as part of this. And then ultimately, like I said, the idea is to try to drive the demand that would get more people to invest in solar, thus justifying the. So yeah, the idea is that while residents may benefit from solar on their homes, and I know there's programs out there for advocating for those types of developments, we're really looking for economies of scale, and we're also looking for a way to be able to streamline the process. Nate can work with local installers, and it's very plausible that we could bring more work to Alaska for other stuff. So. I see Mr. Claus has joined us this evening. Good evening, Santa.
Hi, good evening, Robert. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you making the time. I'm sure this is a very busy season for you.
It is, but I think solar is important.
It is. I'll make sure to send the links to the videos that we did at the beginning here to share with you and make sure that we get this out to folks. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks.
So I also understand that I know Jerome said that he had to.
Robert, you're muted, buddy.
There you go. Good evening, Nathan. So ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you Nathan McCarthy, the CEO of Solar on Earth.
Hello.
How are you guys?
Hello. Good.
Hello.
How's your day going today?
It's going good. It's just a cold day, but that's how our days be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got lots of snow.
Where who's on this call tonight?
This is Jerome.
Hi, Jerome.
Hi.
What do you do? Where are you located?
I'm in Anchorage, Alaska.
Okay.
Hi, Nathan. Santa Claus up in North Pole. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Are you actually in North Pole?
Yes, I'm actually in North Pole. I'm a former councilman, mayor pro tem.
That is epic. That is so great. Okay.
So we're I shared some videos and stuff on what PPAs are and how some schools have benefited with solar and stuff. But
I mean, I think it's the fastest and the best and easiest way to get solar rolled out in Alaska. And that's just a fact because people don't want to deal with complicated financing, especially right now, the way that the economy is. So if a company can pretty much pick up the tab and install, a system and provide savings off of that system with no out-of-pocket expenditure from whoever, I don't know. I think it's one of the best, if not the best model to roll solar out, like I said, where it's not a complicated process and it still provides savings. And then the good news is for the building or property owner, they're not responsible for operation and maintenance. And I think that, you're always going to need operation and maintenance on any type of renewable energy project, whether it be solar or wind. So to be able to provide jobs to Alaskans where you can have, crews of guys or gals, maintaining these systems for, the next 20, 25 years. I think that's also important too. So there's not just the initial installation of these projects, but, the ongoing operation and maintenance too. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think, especially for a school or any type of, town entity or city entity, they don't exactly have a tax liability, so they're not able to use the tax credit that comes from the solar project. And that's, the owner operator or the finance team who's going to be the long-term owner of the project. They have a tax liability and they're able to use those tax credits. And that's why we have this model, which has been around for about 10 years, power purchase agreement, which in my opinion has been pretty much the most successful way for the United States or Americans to go solar. I would be willing to bet that that is a majority. And like I said, it's just the easiest and best way, especially from a financing perspective, to get solar rolled out pretty quickly and not make it complicated. Which honestly, the more complicated part is how do we pay for it? You know, it's like, well, we're going to pay for it, and we're more or less going to become your utility company, and we're going to give you the kilowatt hours that come from the solar project, whether it be on the ground or on the roof, at a reduced rate compared to what you're paying the utility right now. And that's how they save money. They save the delta between what their PPA rate is from solar and then what they pay the utility. And the reason why Robert and I thought the schools are a good entity to kind of start talking to this about is they have a louder voice than probably regular homeowners and small business owners in Alaska. And the reason why that's important is because we need the proper net metering rules and to be able to support that. More or less, we need 1-to-1 net metering. So if there or something that financially would make sense for us to be able to put a PPA together, if they're going to give us 2 cents back for every kilowatt hour, it's an automatic no-go. We have a feeling that there's a small net metering cap, or it's for small projects, and we're going to have to be the first ones that get the school to say, hey, yeah, this sounds good. And then more or less push against the utility to let them or have them give us a reasonable net metering credit rate. And I just think going with the school entity who's going to have a louder voice can kind of be the segue to get, real net metering programs, rolled out in Alaska. I just, after doing this for a long time, everyone has all these science fiction and, let's put batteries everywhere and all that. And that's all great and all. But, there's a thing called money, and not everybody has an unlimited, spend. So what is the next best thing is, let's start with a PPA where those people can start saving money, pretty quickly. And like I said, getting solar rolled out, faster than later, because the project still had to pencil for us, or, the long-term owner operator of the project. That's most likely why we won't put batteries in it, at least at first, because they're still very, very expensive, So it's like everyone, yeah, let's do batteries, this and that. And then you stick it into a pro forma and you're like, oh, the numbers don't pencil. And it's like, you're just back to square one again, not having any solar. So, I think the best thing is to start with just getting solar rolled out, having the right net metering rule. And then, like I said, either, working with a hospital or a school or some sort of public entity that has a louder voice. And then when the utility companies approach, Robert's going to have to do a little bit more background work on the utilities and figuring out what their current net metering cap is, if it's 20 kilowatts, if it's 15 kilowatts, if anything or not, because most of these schools that we're going to be doing, I'm going to say at a minimum would be like 100 kilowatts, so in order to make that work, you need to have a net metering guidelines with the utility. And like I said, the perfect entity to kind of push that with would be like a school, because I feel like, the utility companies are more likely to kind of buck if they have someone like that, and then we could use that as an example and build upon that. I'm not afraid of being the first one, or using the school or whatever is kind of like the catapult to get them to open up to other ideas, which will in fact affect other people positively too, So, but anyways, that's kind of a little bit of my introduction and my feeling on how to roll stuff out sooner than later. Yeah.
Nate, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got in, and about Solar on Earth and what it does?
Sure, but do you mind if I let everyone else kind of introduce themselves real quick. I met Santa Claus. He
And
said that he was what?
city council member in North Pole.
Oh, gotcha. And then CJ, what's your background?
Mechanical engineering, mostly, and construction, and
Okay.
currently work for the state in a different capacity and administrative.
Yep. Okay.
So I work with numbers.
Yep. Numbers don't lie. You
No,
know.
they don't.
That's what when I got into solar, I said, "Uh-oh, there's going to be a lot of math," and I almost quit my first day. And then I really put my head down. I'm like, "You can't really do anything without math." So,
That's why I was looking at before I even started this, that Alaska's almost double the kilowatt hours on how much it costs for electricity than lower 48.
yeah, absolutely.
I want to see how
That's
this.
why but the cost to roll out and build solar will be more too. So it's almost like a good thing that it's a little bit higher because like I would say, like a power purchase agreement per kilowatt hour will be higher in Alaska than the lower 48. But because they're spending so much money, you can still save them a good amount of money,
Okay, so I guess that leaves Sandra. You want to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hello. My name's Sandra Krieger, and I am a developer, just real estate investor, realtor in the Matsu Borough. And Jerome and CJ and I are planning on beginning some developments of tiny homes, and we'd like to make them 100% off grid. These developments that we do, whether it's residential or commercial spaces, we're trying to stay off grid and have them 100% self-contained buildings.
Yeah.
So that's what we're working on.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I think
and they'll have wind turbines and solar panels, and of course there'll have to be days where there's generators too, but
no, well, that's going to come down to how well your storage. You're more or less going to have to build a wind turbine or a solar system that's pretty much like triple the size of what your expected usage is. Well, you don't have any way for 6 months. Then it's going to have to come down to your battery storage. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean,
and that's where CJ comes in.
Custom
I don't know
power
if you're going
walls.
to be able to get. I don't know if you're going to be able to get a system that's going to pull you through 6 months worth of storage. I guess that's the fight that's going to go on for a long time, right?
Yeah, custom power walls generally can take care of that.
Right.
And custom power
so
walls
I think
can generally take care of that.
Can or can't?
Can. That's why they have what look like server rooms, basically full of these that you can stack as much as you need for your usage.
And you think you're going to be able to
development?
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious how much, that, and that's where I have to ask the tough questions, right? Which is like, then it just, I mean, sure, everything sounds good when you have an unlimited amount of money, right?
Oh, we used to install them up on the slope on Spy Island, where I used to actually we built all of those facilities up there, so I know they work.
I'm just curious. Do you think you're going to be able to build enough storage where you stored the power that was generated to pull you through 6 months of non-generation?
No, that's not how it really is, though. Especially if you're using bifacial solar panels, nobody's going to need to rely on solar panels alone. You also have wind, and you generally will couple those systems.
Yeah, bifacial's only giving you about another 10-15% though.
15, and yeah, but if you're looking at like a 575 watt panel for bifacial, and you have enough to keep your batteries
Who's making a 575 bifacial right now?
Give me a minute.
I can't believe they're at 575 right now.
So, Nate, would you?
And I believe it was that I think the record was like 30% efficiency now by an Indian company.
Oh, that's probably Pari? No, not there's only really one Indian company that's doing big things right now. I seen them at a show. Yeah, I mean we were only at 21% efficient 3 years ago, you know, so that
Well, the
I mean we're
technology's
18%, probably 17% about 10 years ago. So
Have you looked, Nate? Have you looked at all at what UAF is doing? The University of Alaska Fairbanks, as far
no,
as the technologies that they've come up with, because we're quite a bit farther south than UAF than Fairbanks, where
yeah.
we're located. We do get a lot more sun than they do, and not the amount of snow or the cold or everything else that they get. But they're coming up with some pretty fantastic things to deal with our sun angles and our weird sunshine.
Well,
So
there's
I'm assuming trackers then, right?
I'll let you handle that, CJ.
yeah, there's a whole host of manufacturers for the 575s just upon a quick Google, and in fact I even found 590s for solar panels.
Wonder what the price is per watt on those though. Probably like $1 a watt.
Solar's not going to be cheap no matter what way you go, but yeah.
So
Well,
Nate, I know in Chicago it's been a long day for you already, so I appreciate you giving us your time tonight. But do you think you could tell us a little bit more about your background and what brought you to Solar on Earth?
Sure. I have been in solar for about 12 years right now. I worked for the biggest solar company in the country, 2 of them, and then I ran like their sales side for a while. I've been in my high tech stuff, pretty much all like telecom and security for 17 years, and like I said, solar right around 12, and probably the last 9 years I've been pretty much working on mostly solar farms, projects that are kind of like a megawatt to about 9 megawatts each, roughly. And we've done about 660 megawatts so far, our company, over the last 9 or so years. And yesterday, Solar on Earth and our partner Green Lantern Solar, we just won the #1 community solar project in the entire country, which is pretty cool. So it's a fucking grind. Solar is, you know, you almost can't, if you're not going to really move mountains unless you're fully committed, you pretty much wake up solar and go to sleep solar, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do wind too. We do Berge and some other Chinese turbines that are actually really nice, pretty much between 15 kilowatts and 700 kilowatt projects for agriculture use, behind the meter. So the community solar stuff we have, that's not behind the meter. We're just tying in the 3-phase and we're sending the power out to the grid. And then the wind turbines we do, those are behind the meter. Those are specifically for farm operations. And, you know, we do all the grant writing for farmers with the REAP credit and all sorts of stuff. It's hard. Every single day is not easy. So, yeah, because the business is, you know, we're moving at 1,000 miles an hour. Something changes every 2 days. Something we thought, something, what, rush, slow down, hurry up, slow down. Yeah, it's just, and that's the solar coaster, right? So it's not, I always kind of warn people before they get into the business, you know, if you're not okay with changes all the time, probably cancel this immediately. So, right.
Were you directly involved with the Green Lantern solar projects? I'm just looking at some of the ones I see here. Pretty big projects.
Yeah.
Here.
Yep. For some reason, we weren't in the friggin' magazine Solar Builder, but we just got mentioned in another. It's fine. Because on that project, we just did the offtake on it anyways, where we more or less connected that project with our partner. We connected like 4 dairy farms or 5 dairy farms into
Where
that
was
project.
that
Vermont.
at? Okay.
Yeah, so that's part of the play here is that if we just pitched like one school or even one school district, there would be a lot of political barriers that would just slow things down. So the pitch here is, and why we tried to attract representatives from Anchorage to Matsu and Fairbanks was to give a pretty good representation of the rail belt, which is the majority of where the energy is used and consumed, and give us a chance. The utilities are looking for a project that's big enough to bring them all together, but small enough and simple enough to actually get done in our lifetimes. And solar on schools, I think, is the simplest, as you mentioned in the very beginning, the simplest solution. So what would this look like for legislatures who are going to be watching this, and what would they need to know in order to be able to move a project forward here, start planning?
Oh, it's so easy. That's the thing. All these guys take out their notepads and act like it's this big problem to solve, but it just comes down to what is the utility going to compensate the kilowatt hours that are produced from that system per kilowatt hour, because based off of what that number is dictates if a finance entity would be interested in providing the financing for a power purchase agreement. So like in the States, like, right, like when most of the states started doing solar, a lot of them haven't yet. Like where they come out with net metering rules is, let's say you're all in per kilowatt hour, delivery, supply, taxes, fees, everything, whatever else is 20 cents. Massachusetts, when they first started doing solar, they would give the solar company 20 cents a kilowatt hour. So like any they would give us that, but we need to be able to deduct the 20 cents as a credit against what they would owe the utility, which would be 0. But then we're charging them back 16 cents a kilowatt hour from the solar array. So like whatever we're giving them from that project, they're paying less for the energy. They save the delta, which is the 4 cents a kilowatt hour. So they don't have to put any money up. And I'm telling you, this is like everyone wants to, go here, get money. No. PPA is very simple, sir. You're paying 20 cents. We get the full credit from the utility. We could give you the power for 16 cents, save you 4 cents a kilowatt hour. You use 80,000 kilowatt hours a year, 4 cents times 80,000. That's what your savings are. Simple. And the best part about it is I think a majority of these projects that we can install, we could do a fixed rate. So these schools will actually know what they're going to be paying for electric for 20 years. As long as we could get a 20-year net metering agreement with the utility. And like I said, like they don't need, like I'm pretty sure they're around 33, 35 cents a kilowatt hour. I don't think we need 30 or 35 cents a kilowatt hour. So like we could probably make it work at like like 18, 20, 22 cents. So if we're generating electric, the utility can kind of produce a little bit less electric. And let's say that solar system is producing, which it most likely will, produce more energy than what the school or whatever is using, especially in the summer when the schools are not there. That power goes right back into the grid, and the grid can use that power. So the utility might look at it as also a benefit for them, because they want to know what's in it for us. Instead of you charging them 33 cents, we could give you this power cheaper, but we still need 22 cents. We're not asking for the full 33. We just need something to be able to make this project pencil, and for us to also save them money too, because we would still need to come in lower than what the utility is giving us, right? So the utility gives us 24 cents a kilowatt hour. We could give the customer like 18 or 19. and that's essentially, they wouldn't be saving from the 30 cents. Well, there's a couple different ways. Anyways, Robert, in a nutshell, we need the utility companies to give a fair net metering value for the kilowatt hour produced from solar. And there needs to be like a decent size cap. Like they can't say, well, we'll do it, but only for 30 kilowatts. But then we're fucked again, because there's not going to be many schools that are only 30 kilowatts. They're going to be 200, 300, 400, you know? So those are pretty much the only two things. Everyone else is going to make it into some other big thing. And this is not, no, it's the size. What is the size of system you'll let us install and give us that net metering cap? And some utilities function differently. They have all these crazy rules that they make up. You know, if it's a customer who uses this much power, we'll give you this much kilowatt hours. If you use this much, we'll give you this. But at the end of the day, it just needs to be a number that makes sense for a third party organization to come in to be able to more or less pay for all the racking, all the solar panels, all the installation, everything. And then they own and operate that system. They're making money, and then also saving that entity that they installed solar on, they're saving money too. But that only can be done if the utility, like I said, I hate saying it over and over again, but if they give a fair net metering rate.
Yeah. So if they don't, guess what
option number 2 is? Everyone has to get batteries. And you know how that's going to go? That's going to slow the whole thing down, which I get it. You have some pretty smart people on this call, but not a lot of people have like I said, the disposable income where they could go out and buy a battery and do solar and all this other stuff, right? It's more expensive, a lot more expensive. And a lot of Alaskans, just like any other American right now, is a little bit more interested in how can I save money right now, you know? And I think batteries can always be added to systems later on too, you know?
So I appreciate all this great information. I'd like to give everybody a chance to ask questions. So I'll do a round robin roll here. So I'll start with CJ. Questions, comments, thoughts?
Yeah, so you mentioned batteries. Are you talking about just running straight solar without backup? And then also regarding the funding of this, since it'd be for the schools, I assume that you have dealt with and sold to state entities before?
Everything you can think of, yep.
Okay. And then as far as like how
everyone
they do
with
their
an electric bill.
As far as how that goes with engineers for the state and doing their inspections before anything goes through because of all the red tape that comes with it.
It's all part of every single project, pretty much, you know. It's pretty simple, though. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't see any issues with anything. The only thing I see an issue with is the utility giving yeah, I mean, like I said, you know, the batteries and all that stuff, that's a great thing. But the other thing you got to think about solar is like getting stuff rolled out too, and not making everything into a crazy science project, because sometimes that's just too much. So it's like, okay, well, how do I get started here? How do I start rolling stuff out? And I think the lower barrier to entry is doing PPAs, where people can start at least saving money, you know?
Yeah, saving money is a good place to start. So
yeah.
CJ, did you have any other questions?
No, I was just wondering, are you talking about rolling out solar without the battery banks first?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
So Sandra, do you have any questions, thoughts, or comments?
Oh, trust me, CJ, well, I'm with you. I'm with you with all the storage and everything, but you got to look at, like, you know, you bite off way more than you can chew, and it's about like getting stuff going and not, you know, I mean, you kind of have two options, you know. What do you think the school would be interested in what, you got to ask your customer, are you guys more interested in saving money or having a backup for power if you need it? Because you could technically still do the batteries with the PPA. It would just be probably a PPA that they're not saving any money on, but they're also not spending any more money. So more or less the money that we would have saved them on the Delta, we're going to up the PPA rate so we could get more money for that project, and we could do batteries. You get what I'm saying?
Well, I know the state of Alaska has allocations for things like that, and so it wouldn't really be a huge ordeal to get power walls in place for the solar system.
You said Alaska has what?
We have allocations available for funding for things like this, and getting battery banks set up would not be a huge ordeal. I'm one of the people who writes the checks.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. Well, in that case, then yes, absolutely. It's just like I said, I always just look at like, when you have situations where you don't have that stuff available, you got to look at, well, the money has to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Sandra, you had a question?
I guess my question is when does this, are we just focused on schools and public buildings, or are we talking you guys are willing to come into certain developments?
To be honest,
So you're just focused on huge projects, is that?
Well, I wouldn't say that they're huge, but they're not small. They're not 5 kilowatts, and I think in order to kind of ruffle feathers a certain way and to get this type of stuff rolled out, you have to pick certain customers, maybe from a political standpoint, to help get the ball rolling,
Yeah, solar's
That's just my opinion. I mean, I could be wrong, right? I mean, I think there's a couple of different ways to skin a cat. That's my way, I think, as of right now. And I mean, I'd love to just small companies, small businesses would be great too. I'm not sure how many small businesses there are in Alaska, like where you have like an owner and a company and stuff like that, and you could do a PPA for them and stuff like that too.
No, we have gold mines. They can do PPAs.
Yeah.
They can do
So
PPAs.
I mean, that's fine. I'd rather just do the schools and the entities, these different public entities at first, and other types of businesses,
So Sandra,
but,
that's the trade-off we're trying to find here with this program, is that we're trying to find a project big enough to attract companies like Solar on Earth.
Gotta start somewhere,
Correct.
And
that's what I've been talking to the borough mayor about these town sites that I'm going to start building, and where they're going to be located, and this, that, and the other is definitely off grid. And when you start talking to MEA and this, that, and the other, to run a power line is a lot of money. To have these buildings be off grid in the areas that I'm focusing on.
So Sandra, I hear what you're saying, and
yeah,
the issue, not the issue, I don't want to use that word, that's the wrong word, but the area of concern, that's a better version, is you can't really roll a PPA into like an off-grid system. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So like at that point, it just comes down to
that's what I'm like. You're backfeeding the grid.
At that point, it just comes down to, can you install solar? That's kind of a different. Hey, yeah, we're gonna install solar. Yeah. A lot of people.
Well, and that's where I was going with the location of these town sites. We're going to be following the new railroad and highway corridor that I'm sure MEA is going to be putting in their power lines, and opening up this area that we're building infrastructure here in the Matsu Borough. Mm-hmm. And So in my discussions with the borough mayor and the comprehensive plan that's being rewritten this year, it would behoove you to be part of that comprehensive plan and say, hey, let's plop some solar out here too.
Yeah,
This process
I,
and get ahead of the game. But we always seem to put band-aids on everything. Let's get ahead of the game. And
yeah, I mean, if people have the money to buy solar with no PPA or anything like that, you know, they can do that all day, whatever they would like to do.
no, I'm not
you know?
talking about people. I'm talking about the borough assembly and the borough, the
So
government officials.
what is the solar going to power?
Borough buildings.
The
schools.
town. No, there won't be schools. We have enough schools as far as I'm concerned. But
So
I mean, there's no reason we couldn't use the school buildings that are out there, but I'm saying we are developing new areas, brand new areas. And there's no reason that these town sites that Jerome and CJ and I are working on couldn't backfeed the grid. So that these towns that we're building are green towns and they're backfeeding the grid as we plop them along the way.
Well, these towns that you're talking about, they're already built. Like there's buildings there and stuff, or no?
No, we're building them.
Okay, so this is the future. So I appreciate what you're saying. Trust me, I'm on the same page with you, but we're also talking about projects that we could start doing like pretty quickly here, not, you know, these other projects that are further down the road. Of course, yeah, we can put solar on anything. Right. You know, you could put solar on your head if you want, you know. So
Sandra, do you have any other questions?
Sandra, trust me, I'm
you.
totally with you. I mean, who knows? In 20 years, there might be this black box that we put in the ground and it powers our whole property. You never know. So,
right.
Well, I get where she's
talking about. We're talking about giving incentives to businesses to move to the valley, to move to the Matsu borough out of Anchorage, and to be able to plan and build this comprehensive plan correctly instead of an afterthought. Like if you take an existing school and you plop solar panels on it, to me, that's an afterthought, right?
It doesn't make that much of a difference. The only
if we make it part of the design criteria, and have it in place, and if you're going to build something, this is the way you're going to build it. Here's the book of specs. Do it right. Right?
Yeah, I mean, there's only certain roofs that would be better if you put the racking on when you did the roof. And, you know, that would be like a flat rubber roof, you know, where you did the mounting and then did the rubber roof at the same time instead of doing a ballast system. So there's not a lot of, and there's just so much different racking that's out there. So it's like, yeah, to do them, you know, of course, it's easier. You run the conduit, you know, maybe a little bit differently because you're in the process of building a property rather than running conduit and wiring after. But it's not that big of a deal. But yes, I agree with you. But like I said, I think to like at least get going, you know, Robert and I and, you know, other people, I've found that like, you know, approaching like a public entity, like a school is a really good place to shoe in, you know, to get started. And if CJ can get checks written for batteries, that would be a double whammy. So then not only would they be saving money on their electric bill because we can make that PPA pencil, they would also have backup storage in case of an emergency, you know, because we'd have no problem connecting that into the solar array, because if they store power, they're still paying us for that electric produced anyways. So there's no problem with that.
Yeah, that's always been my pitch, is that the schools and government buildings, if they had backup power, could serve as emergency shelters and places.
They're already doing that in the lower 48, Robert, right now. So I don't really know because we haven't done one, but they started to propose if your solar farm is close to like a hospital or certain places in the grid, and they can reroute the power through the grid through the circuits or whatever, because they can control that, and your system is close enough to something like that, then you could get an additional adder on your power for making your system available to be used as emergency services. So yes, that is something that has been already started to be, covered with this energy stuff,
Okay. So to finish up with the Matsu crew, Jerome, do you have any questions, thoughts, or comments that you'd like to share with Nate?
I'm pretty clear on this, and then the size that need to be started. I'm pretty much in agreement with it has to be a larger, something large like a school, and it would be that would demonstrate to the rest of the world that this can happen. So I'm in agreement with that. I understand solar. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like picking an entity that will kind of put pressure on the utility company. I feel like a school would be perfect. It's not like a person or a business, It's you need to kind of pick wisely who you're going to use.
Save.
Well, then the school, you know what I'm saying? And then you're using like a public entity to push against another public entity. And I just think that that's a good segue.
Yeah, I think they can complement each other. So, Mr. Santa Claus, do you have any thoughts, comments, or anything you'd like to share with Nate?
Nate is a former councilman up here in this little town of 2000. We are in a school district. We are not the school district. So with several buildings that the city has here, I know they're looking into power alternatives. We just did the street lighting, changing over to LEDs and some other stuff to conserve our resources. So I'm interested in what you're saying. I'll just keep in touch with Robert and find out what the follow-ups are, and then relay to just people that I know over the city and see if they might be interested in following up themselves. But thank you so much for being here tonight.
No problem, sir.
And Merry Christmas.
I definitely see that as a secondary project where we go into and help the municipal buildings themselves develop their own solar capacity. But we've been discussing this for quite a while now and feel that the schools are the lowest hanging fruit because they offer the highest value, both publicity as well as economics to the entire community. Because when you save the schools money, you're saving the borough's money, the state money, and ultimately you're creating an opportunity for the future. And then what ARC is doing with workforce development, we were able to, with the last solar tour, get the IBEW to participate, and they want to train more people. So we're looking at being able to how we can tie all this stuff into not just putting the solar in, but putting solar in a way that trains people to do it. So Nathan, can you tell us a little bit about how your company's model works? You don't do turnkey solutions, or how would you work with the groups in Alaska?
Sorry, what was the last part?
How would you work with groups in Alaska, like other installers or electrical companies? How much of the work do you do yourself, and how much would you be bidding out to local contractors?
I'm not sure necessarily how much work we would be bidding out to local contractors, because a lot of it comes down to, have they done the work before as well? A lot of people, I've done this, I've done that. I don't think any of the people that would be installing or doing, my goal would be to roll out enough of these projects where we could have 100% Alaskans, working on these projects. And so like I said, to be honest, Robert, the way you really do this stuff the right way, because you know, I haven't worked in Alaska per se, but I've been working in rural America for the last 6 years, almost every day. And for stuff like this, and especially where people are spread out so much, it would actually be the most wise to assemble a crew, especially for doing the initial installation, where that crew would be traveling around installing these projects one by one, because you just don't have the population to be able to like have an office in one place, and that office just serves that. I mean, maybe eventually, yes, but in the beginning, when you're kind of like doing these projects here and there, you have like a traveling team, you know, where it's like a group of like 6 guys, like 3 installers and 3 electricians that just work in Alaska, and they travel and they install projects one by one by one. That's the way you got to start doing it. You're not just going to hire the guy who happened to be in that town. I mean, you can, but especially if you're doing a PPA, you just need specific training on installing. Sure. Everyone thinks solar is just solar, but it is electrical and construction work at the end of the day. And depending on the quality of the install that you do, dictates a lot of the future operation and maintenance costs that you're going to maybe incur and later on, which could have a negative impact on a project if it's not installed correctly, because you're going to have to keep sending guys back to that project to make sure it's working, and something wasn't installed right or whatever, because this contractor, and try to get a hold of this guy, he's gone, he changed his phone number, blah blah blah. That's why you just got to stay with, you know, a crew that's certified to actually do the work. And like I said, in a place like Alaska, you're gonna have to roll with a crew that can travel around the state a little bit, and that's just how you're gonna have to do it. Yeah, especially when you're doing the number crunching and stuff like that. Like CJ knows, you can't like just have like unexpected costs pop up all the time, and it just doesn't work for your pro forma, you know. Yeah. So then you're gonna make it so investors don't want to invest in projects there.
So we're reaching towards the bottom of the hour, and I know people got to go. I appreciate you guys' time. So Nathan, what would be your closing remarks that you would like to make to the legislatures and to the decision makers who will be watching this video?
It sounds like heavy duty projects, which I am fully ready to do. I love this stuff. But like I said, the biggest part of it is going to come down to getting the utility company to stand up and to be able to let these projects get rolled out via proper net metering rules, you know, which you could pretty much do your research on any of the top states in the country who have the most solar rolled out: Minnesota, Colorado, Massachusetts, New York, Illinois, New Jersey. You know, those are probably California, kind of, well, they just changed their program, New Mexico, and all these states that are successful with their solar projects have a successful net metering program. And there's not one single state that's in the top solar states with the most solar installed in their state that don't have a good net metering program. That's pretty much the number one hindrance. You know, you don't even need SRECs, which are like solar renewable energy credits. You just need a good enough net metering program to get stuff rolled out, which will allow a power purchase agreement program to be successful, which is the no money down, no out of pocket way to go solar for Alaskans, especially for people and organizations that don't have a tax liability. So yeah, that's what I would like to say, Robert.
Well, Nathan, I appreciate you taking the time out of your I will send you some more information and share this, and we'll keep discussing what the low-hanging fruit is. Sandra, CJ, Santa, Jerome, all of you, everybody who attended, everybody who's watching us, thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, and I will we'll get rolling on this, and we'll see what we can get done. So
Sounds
thank
good.
you.
Thank you guys. Have a great night. Bye, Sandra.
Thank
Bye,
you
CJ.
so much for the invite. Thank you, Nathan.
All right. Have a good day, guys.
Likewise.
Okay.
You too. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.